What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Don't forget to hit the bell notification icon to be notified every time I put out a new video on my channel. And Pearl Jam was a band who seemed to have trouble holding on to a drummer during the 90s. And during the decade, the band had 5 different drummers, including Dave Krusen, Matt Chamberlin, Dave Abbruzzese, Jack Irons, and their current drummer Matt Cameron. Today we're going to talk about fan favorite Dave Abruzzese. In 1991, Pearl Jam would release their monumental debut record 10 that saw drummer Dave Krusen behind the kit. Krusen left Pearl Jam in May of 1991 just as the band was going to England to mix 10, and he soon checked himself into rehab. According to Krusen, he was suffering from personal problems at the time, including alcohol addiction and dealing with his first child on the way. It would take 2 more tries, but by 1994 he would be sober. And Matt Chamberlin was brought in to play a string of dates for the band who were out on the road promoting 10, and was offered the drumming spot but declined since he wanted to slow his life down a bit, and he would tell author Mark Yarm in the book Everybody Loves Our Town that he felt no emotional connection to the band since he was a replacement player. Chamberlin, for his part, had his eyes set on joining G.E. Smith's house band on the television show Saturday Night Live. Chamberlin was friends with a drummer named Dave Abbruzzese, who he knew back in Texas. He would recommend the drummer to Pearl Jam, and during this time Abruzzese was working in a plant shop, and he would tell author Mark Yarm, "I was working at a head shop. My expertise was in the grow department. So if people would come in saying they wanted to grow lettuce hydroponically in their closet, wink wink, I would help them get set up." The drummer was also playing in a funk band at the time in Dallas called Dr. Tongue, while also hosting his own radio show on community radio called Music We Like. It was that show where he first heard of an up-and-coming band named Pearl Jam, but his initial reaction to the band may surprise you. Abruzzese initially had a negative response to Pearl Jam's sampler CD he played on the show, and claimed that he only made it through 25 seconds of the first couple songs. Krisha Argaro, who was Pearl Jam manager Kelly Curtis's assistant, would tell author Mark Yarm, "I was shocked to see Dave Abruzzese in the lobby of Curtis Management when they were trying out drummers, because he was such a rocker, super long hair, wearing a tracksuit. He's from Texas, so it's a totally different vibe. I could see him in Alice in Chains, not in Pearl Jam," she'd say. And Abruzzese would end up arriving in Seattle just as the band was filming the video for their single Alive. Abruzzese wouldn't perform in the video as Matt Chamberlin was still in the band. But soon enough, Abruzzese would start performing with the group just before the release of 10, and following his second show with the band, as an act of solidarity, he would get a tattoo of the Pearl Jam stick figure logo on his left shoulder. Abruzzese would tour extensively with the band over the next 3 years, performing on their MTV Unplugged set, Saturday Night Live, and the band's follow-up records including 1993's Versus and 1994's Vitalogy. It was during the making of Vitalogy where tensions seemed to flare up in the band, leading to his dismissal. According to guitarist Stone Gossard, Vitalogy was the first Pearl Jam record where Eddie Vedder was the one making all of the final decisions on the album. According to producer and engineer Adam Kasper, he claimed Vedder wasn't happy musically with Abruzzese, with Kasper claiming Dave was an extremely busy player and Eddie liked more of a raw sound. "We even started out with drum machines, and that's sort of a slap in the face to the drummer," he'd say. It's also been claimed that there were personality conflicts between the members and Abruzzese, more specifically from Eddie Vedder and bassist Jeff Ament. There was one story in particular which rubbed Eddie Vedder the wrong way. It was claimed by producer Brendan O'Brien at one of the recording sessions for Vitalogy that Abruzzese accidentally knocked over Vedder's guitar that was a gift from The Who's Pete Townsend. The guitar broke, and Abruzzese apparently left a little note for Eddie and left the studio to go to a drum clinic or some sort of self-promotional gig. Abruzzese denied this ever happened, and another source of tension was that Abruzzese was more comfortable with the rock star life and attitude, which rubbed Vedder and the others in the band the wrong way. Colleen Combs, who worked for Pearl Jam, would tell Mark Yarm that the band was a democracy, but Abruzzese always wanted something different from the others, citing an instance where he would order a limo and not a town car. Also happening around this time was that Pearl Jam got involved in a highly publicized dispute with Ticketmaster over their exorbitant fees on concert tickets. Abruzzese thought the band should be focusing on music instead of fighting with the ticket giant, and the fight got so big that several members of Pearl Jam would testify in front of Congress, with Dave telling author Mark Yarm, "When those guys were testifying in front of Congress, I was in Indonesia just enjoying being alive. The more I read about the Ticketmaster situation, it's like it all sounds good and nice, but there are more important flagrant injustices we could have latched onto," he'd say. And bassist Jeff Ament would tell Mark Yarm, Dave was a different egg for sure. There were a lot of things personality-wise where I didn't see eye to eye with him. He was more comfortable being a rock star than the rest of us, partying, girls, cars. I don't know if anyone is in the same place. Also, with Dave musically, when you'd say, I want this to sound more like the Buzzcocks, I didn't think he related to that at all. He was a technical guy, and we all played by feeling or seeing other bands. Dave would fire back, claiming he was the only member of the band who had the same girlfriend for 8 years, and that he was driving a used car during his time in the group, and the band was hypocritical for showing up on the cover of magazines, and then complaining in the same interview how they didn't want to be rock stars. He would also rebuke the claim that there was any discussion of what the band should try to imitate or sound like. Guitarist Stone Gossard would attempt to play the middleman, claiming Abruzzese's ability to communicate with Ed and Jeff were stifled, and that it wasn't necessarily the drummer's fault. So how did the band break the news to Abruzzese? Well, on August 1st, 1994, Pearl Jam announced the drummer had left the group on amicable terms, but Dave would later come out and claim he was fired, telling a story of how he met guitarist Stone Gossard for breakfast and was told point blank the band was looking for another drummer. He would soon receive calls from the other members of the band except Vedder, and he wouldn't see Vedder until a few years later after he and a friend attended a Chris Cornell show in Seattle, and the pair were busy waiting outside on the curb, with Abruzzese remembering. Eddie came up to us, he said, Dave Abbruzzese, and kind of put his arms out in a greeting because he couldn't hide from me. And I stood up and realized just how much shorter he was than I remembered. He started rambling and tried to join in on our conversation, and he ended up toddling off. There was a little part of me that would have loved to have clobbered him, and another part of me that felt like I already have, just by the fact that I could sleep at night, and I was proud of everything we accomplished, he'd remember. And following his dismissal from Pearl Jam, Dave would pursue other musical projects, including even auditioning for Guns N' Roses in 1997 following the departure of longtime drummer Matt Sorum. Fast forward now to 2016, and his history with Pearl Jam would be in the news again, when the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced that Pearl Jam would be part of the 2017 inductee class. In the run-up to the ceremony, there was a lot of controversy over who would be inducted and who wouldn't be, and Dave would not be inducted, despite the fact that drummer Dave Krusen would be, as well as longtime drummer Matt Cameron. Abruzzese took it as a snub and was vocal in the press stating, the members of Pearl Jam have got to know what's the right thing to do. They can't justify ignoring my contributions, like me or not. If they're still a part of the band that remembers how hard we worked, how much blood and how much sweat, they will do the right thing. It's just a fine opportunity to see what Pearl Jam has to say in response. Let's see if they do the right thing. It'll be interesting to see the spin that is put on it. The band and its management have never been ones to shy away when an injustice is done. Let's see if they still have the courage to fight the good fight, he'd say. And Pearl Jam would make an attempt to include everyone in the ceremony, but Dave didn't see it that way, releasing a statement a week after the ceremony in April of 2017, which he didn't attend, lashing out at the band, saying the band tweeted that they welcomed the idea of an event, granting the possibility of all the drummers to be in the same room. That isn't an invite, he'd say. And Abruzzese would also claim that he had a greater impact on the band than some of his peers, stating, for the band to put me in the same light as Matt Chamberlin and Dave Krusen was a slap in the face. Nothing to do with those guys as people or players, respect, but as a contributor, a band member, a definitive contributor to the energy and power of where the band went, the sacrifices, the work, the physical and emotional contributions, not to mention the personal weight of carrying on through and after unceremonious and disrespectful way I got fired. I gave this band all I had to give every single moment I was in it. I never played for a paycheck. I never let the band down. I never let the music down. I never let the fans down, not once, he'd say. And following the whole fiasco, guitarist Mike McCready, who was quite close with Abruzzese, would come out and say that the drummer should have been inducted. He would then go on to explain how the former drummer was an essential band member, helping the band navigate the massive success they experienced from playing Lollapalooza and opening for the likes of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Soundgarden. And Dave would state his biggest regret was not getting fired, but the fact that the band didn't put out more music during his time in the group. Regarding that tattoo he got on his shoulder, he would tell author Mark Yarm he still has no regrets. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Dave Abruzzese and where does he stack up in Pearl Jam's long list of drummers for you. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Take care.